Everybody, welcome back to my channel, my social thread. My name's Crystal, and today I'm joined by Claire of Stitch Hem Sew on YouTube and Instagram. Claire is a sewing buddy of mine and also a fellow vlogger. Hi Claire, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for saying that you'd come on the channel. Thank you. So just so that people know, for the viewers, how did we first meet, Claire? Well, virtually meet. Do you remember?
Just through Instagram and commenting on each other's vlogs, I think.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, I first found out about you. I think you did a collaboration with Adele, So for Serenity, like the blouse. Was it the blouse that you did?
Yeah, I did.
I think I commented on it and I said, oh, your blouse is really, really nice. And then we just got chatting, and then you sort of said, would you like to collaborate as well? And I was like, I was waiting for you to ask. Thank you. There's me super excited that someone's asked me to collaborate with them. And to our viewers, we do have a collaboration, don't we, Claire, coming up this June, which we'll let you know about it in due course.
We do. Yeah.
And ever since then, Claire set up like a WhatsApp group between myself and Adele and herself, and that's quite nice, isn't it? We just sort of chat sewing things on there.
Yeah.
And she then joined us on the Selfless Sew April 22 challenge, which is great. And ever since, and we are still hoping to meet up at some point physically, myself, her, and Adele. So anyway, there you go. That's how we know each other, basically.
Yeah, just trying to get each other's diaries coordinated. It's a bit difficult.
It's a bit difficult. So Claire, my first question to you is, how and when did you start sewing?
Well, I've always done sewing in the sense of like hand sewing. I don't really remember when I learnt to use a sewing machine. I just learned at quite a young age. I did quite a lot of crafty stuff with a sort of older lady, shall we say, who I'd met through Girl Guiding, and she was massively into like literally any possible craft you can possibly ever imagine, sewing or paper related, just anything she could just do. And so I used to spend quite a lot of time at her house learning how to do various different things. So yeah, it all sort of started from there. I've tried my hand at all sorts of things over the years in terms of crafting, and I did like lace making as a child. And
wow, lace making,
crafting, and all sorts of different things. And then in terms of sewing, as I say, I've always kind of known how to use a sewing machine and could like turn my hand to making like a small item or taking up like some curtains or something like that. But in terms of garment sewing, that didn't really happen until July 2020, I think it was. So sort of your classic lockdown type. And I'd watch huge numbers of the Sewing Bee, different years over the years, and rewatch them. I think I'm a little bit of a ridiculous amount of a fan of it. And that the particular year, so I think it's normally on so it's on sort of this time of year, isn't it? So yeah, so May sort of time. I was been watching the Sewing Bee, and I just kept saying to my husband, I think I really want to buy a sewing machine. And he literally got to the point where he's like, will you just buy one, because you're doing my head in, basically. So I took the plunge and bought myself just a really basic sewing machine, and it all just went from there. So I kind of got my hand back in by making like things like the classic tote bag and all those sort of things, and I very reasonably quickly moved on to garment sewing once I found the sewing community, which I had no idea was so big or so lovely, and there was so much inspiration and wonderful people out there. And so once I'd found YouTube and Instagram, wow, it all went from there, really.
What do you like to sew generally? Do you sew for yourself, for your family?
A bit of both, really. I mean, the larger percentage, let's face it, is for myself. But I do like to sew for my boys and occasionally for my husband, although he is quite picky, so I'm less inclined to sew for him. But I do sometimes sew for him as well. And you know, simple nice jersey makes and things for my boys as well, because kids grow out of clothes too quick to spend too much time on clothes for them.
That's very true. Likewise with my husband, I've never made anything for my husband, but you know, there's that new challenge on this June called He Sews Too or something.
Yeah, that Adam and Lisa are running. Yeah,
I'm going to give that a go, and hopefully I might just do like a pair of shorts and like a short sleeve shirt, just like a summer outfit. but I'm
Yes.
not sure yet. But yeah. So how did your sewing then translate into vlogging? Because that's like a totally different thing, isn't it? Sort of the sewing is one thing, and then the vlogging is a totally new world as well, isn't it?
So I really enjoy watching other vloggers. So it all kind of started from there, really. And so I often watch sewing vloggers whilst I'm sewing, because I feel like I've got like sewing company then, because it can be quite a lonely hobby, really. And so yeah, through watching other people vlogging, I kept thinking, oh, maybe it's something I could do, but I had very much of a think of an imposter syndrome. I still have imposter syndrome. I think to myself, oh, what am I doing? I'm no good at this. And then in November, the November that's just gone, I was watching, I think it was Alex Judge and Sam from Frugalissima, and they'd both done 5 questions, 1 take, and they'd both kind of opened it up to other people to say, this is a really good time if you haven't vlogged before, this is a really great way to start. And it was one particular evening, my husband was at work, sometimes he works on a Saturday evening, and I set up my camera in a really bad way. The lighting was terrible. I was full of cold, and I just did it and uploaded it, and that was the start of it. And so yeah, my first vlog is absolutely appalling. As I say, the lighting is terrible, the sound quality is awful. I've got this really heavy cold, but yeah, that was the beginning of it, and then I carried on from there.
Ah, excellent. Same with me. If I look back at my sort of the first couple of vlogs that I did, it's kind of a bit like, oh, I can't believe I uploaded that. But you know, that's part of the growth of it, isn't it? That's where we were and where we are now. So that's all part of the learning process, isn't it?
If I become a really successful YouTuber with, you know, thousands of and millions of watchers, then maybe those earlier videos will get cold. But at this stage, they're still there for people to watch.
And Claire, what do you use for your vlogging? Do you have any special equipment, or is it just your standard phone?
I use my iPad to record. Yeah, and that's it really. I have got a ring light because I always record in the evening, because I don't have the opportunity during the day with either working or the kids around. So yeah, ring light is the key thing, which is why often in photos you'll see on Instagram, you'll see me with glasses on, and when I'm vlogging I've got no glasses on, because otherwise you get like the rings.
And in terms of editing, Claire, what do you use software wise for editing? Is it just your iPad, your app, you know, whatever it is on the iPad?
No, I don't use the editing suite on the iPad. I don't really know why. When I first started vlogging, after the very initial video that I did, where it was the idea that you didn't edit, so that was kind of got me going. My husband initially was helping me with editing, and he set me up using a package called Vegas Pro, and so I've just carried on using that. He doesn't edit my videos anymore. He did the first few, and then from there I knew what I was doing, so I took over and doing it myself.
And also it takes a lot of time. I think my daughter started off editing mine, my 14-year-old, and we were both enthusiastic and she was enthusiastic, but over the time she became less enthusiastic with editing these, because it does take a lot of time, doesn't it?
It takes a huge amount of time, much longer than the actual recording of the video, or even like the planning about, you know, what you might record within a video. The editing is the longest part, without a doubt.
Especially with me sort of saying, and can you put that there, and can you do that, and can you do this, and she's like, oh mom, just learn how to do it yourself. Like, okay. So I pretty much do most of my editing now, although I still ask for help now and again. So
Google is my friend when it comes to things like that. Tell me how to do such and such. But yeah, there's still a lot to learn. There's a lot more that the package that I'm using could do, but it's kind of at a point where I think, well, in the main, it's okay what I'm putting out for what I'm doing at the moment.
Indeed. And I would say, you mentioned that you mostly vlog at night. Do you sew at night as well? Is that your sort of free time at night when the kids are in bed?
Yeah, generally my sewing time is in the evenings. Occasionally at the weekends I can sneak off for an hour or so. Yeah, the occasional bit of kind of, you know, I might grab 20 minutes here or half an hour there, but in the main my sewing happens in the evening. That's my me time.
Yeah,
my unwind.
So you mentioned that you're busy, obviously, during the day with the children and with work. Can I ask what you do? You know, what your career is or what you do for a living?
Yeah, I work for the local government. I used to be a planning officer years ago. I still work for the local government, but not as a planning officer anymore, just more of an administration type role.
And in terms of planning officer, do you mean like planning permission things?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you're the person to befriend, aren't you, in your local
Yeah, but I'm not a planning officer anymore. I have been for quite a few years, but yeah, I'm still working for local government.
Excellent. I think it's always nice to find out a little bit about people's backgrounds, just because, like you say, the sewing community is so lovely and it's so diverse, and it's just nice to know. It's like, oh, so and so, you know, used to work in this or does work this, and you know, like sewists can be from any background, from any, you know, career, and it's just really, really amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, definitely. There's a whole range of types of people that sew.
And we all have this sort of hobby in common, and we can, you know, just relate and, you know, socialize with all different kinds of people from all walks of life, because we have this lovely hobby in common where we can just, like, you know, talk about fabric and sewing and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely, and we can all do that for hours and hours and hours.
Hours and hours and hours. That is very true. So going back to sewing, what's your least favorite sewing task, can you say?
The cutting out stage, I would suggest. I dislike that more than even piecing together of PDF patterns or tracing the actual physical cutting out the fabric. I think it's because I'm always thinking, what if I don't do that quite right? There's always that in the back of my head. I think that's why I don't like it. And also, if you're trying to do any kind of you know, pattern matching or anything, that always takes ages. And I just, by that stage, I'm like, I just want to get on and sew. And yeah, so I tend to, if I can, I'll batch cut out 2 or 3 projects just so that I've kind of don't have to do it quite so often.
Yeah, me too. And also with my cutting out, I can't fit it in my sewing room, so then I have to go to the dining table, lay everything out, bring everything down. So that is, I'm with you on the cutting out thing. And what's your favorite thing to do for sewing? I guess it's, I don't know, what's your most favorite part to do?
Just the actual sewing bit. Yeah. Yeah, every part of the sewing side of it, really. I couldn't really tie it down to one particular type of bit, but yeah, just the mindful.
I enjoy the same thing, sewing, and then I almost enjoy the sewing more than I enjoy the wearing the actual outfit, if that makes sense. Yeah. Sometimes it's just because it's calming, you're creating something, and it's just a nice way to spend your free time, I think. So yeah,
I don't always just sew garments. Sometimes I'll sew gifts and things for people as well, and it is just it's the act of the sewing itself. But also, you know, it's nice to be able to give a handmade gift to someone, particularly if they are appreciative of the amount of work that's gone into it. Quite a lot of my family are quite creative types as well, so they do get they might not be a sewer, but they understand the amount of time that's gone into an item that you've made. So that's always nice.
Yeah, it is really nice.
I wouldn't necessarily sew for somebody that wouldn't appreciate it, because there's lots of people that don't get it. They just think, oh, sewing must be really cheap. It must be a really good way of saving money. Oh, if only they knew.
Indeed, yeah, it's so true. I do tell people nowadays, some of my friends will come up to me and they'll say, oh, that's a really lovely dress, you could make me one, couldn't you? And then I'm just like, maybe we could do it together, like, because I'm trying to figure out ways of, you know, without being rude and without discouraging them, you know, instead of saying I would make it for you, I'll just say, like, I'll help you if you want, like we could do it together so that you know how to do it. And then they're kind of like, oh, I don't know, I just want you to make it for me for cheap. What's your favorite make today? Do you have a favorite make?
I don't know, it often tends to be the thing that I've most recently made, so I don't know whether I've necessarily got an all-time favorite thing. I think probably the item I'm most proud of is I made the Nova coat, and I built that up in my head to be the most massive thing, because it was a coat and surely that must be really scary and really difficult, and it really wasn't, because the instructions were really good, and it was just the same as following any other pattern, that you just go step by step by step and you get your finished item. But because it was a big thing of it being a coat, that was probably my most proudest item, albeit I'm still not completely convinced by it, but I still kind of love it at the same time.
I do wonder why we all are, well, most of us are scared of coats, because it is the same thing. And then I think, is it because it's lined? Is it because the fabric is thicker? Or I don't know what scares most of us from making coats. I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, but I really had a massive hang up about the fact that, oh, it's a coat, it's a really big thing, and it really, wasn't any different to looking at the other item, really.
So Claire, any sewing fails that come to mind that you have, that you've learned from, or that were just a total disaster?
Yeah, I mean, I have sewing fails on a reasonably regular basis, I would say. I mean, when I say sewing fails, they're not necessarily I haven't finished the item. It's just that when I put it on, I'm like, meh, I'm not that great a fan of it. But in terms of like probably a true sewing fail, when I first started garment making, I hadn't really fully got to grips with the different types of fabric, and that you could have viscose and viscose jersey. And I decided to make I think it was the Helen's Closet. It was a free pattern. It's like a tank top thing that's quite a swingy. I can't remember is it the Lunar Tank? I want to say the Lunar Tank. Anyway, I made this thing, and it was supposed to be made out of viscose jersey, but I had quite got my head around that at that point, and I just made it out of viscose. Because it was so big and swingy, it was okay, but when it came to kind of like the armband bits around it, it's really tight. But we all have to have these little journeys along the way, don't we, to understand things.
Definitely. I did very early on in my sewing, I wouldn't say career, sewing journey, I did the Bettine by Tilly and the Buttons, and that's supposed to be like a drapey fabric that you're supposed to choose, and I chose a cotton poplin, or even like a quilting cotton, and I was so excited, and it actually took me a long time to do, because I was just a beginner back then, and I made it and it was awful, and that kind of put me off for a while.
Oh no.
Yeah, you don't know. I mean, everything is cotton, is it? Well, not everything, but when you look at compositions of things, it's all 100% cotton, but then you've got the lawn, you've got double balls, you've got all these different things, but it's nice to obviously build up on that as you go through your journey. You just learn more and more, don't you?
And that's what vloggers, it really helps. That's watching vloggers, that's really helped me, because you get to see what they've made things out of, and they talk about drape and all that sort of thing, and that's when I really started to learn about the different types of fabric, I think.
Yeah, I know in terms of vloggers, Shona from Sewisfaction, she's done a couple of vlogs on the different types of cottons, different types of jerseys, which is really amazing. I think maybe Lauren of Guthrie and Garnier has done something similar. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just fascinating just to find out all about these different fabric compositions. And I really enjoy watching that. In terms of fabric bases, what do you normally like to sew with?
I guess I get drawn to viscose fabrics because I just like the floatiness of them, but recently I've sewn quite a lot with cotton, and that's just been such a dream to work with, because when you're used to working with viscose, or I sew quite a lot with jersey fabrics and things like that, so to sew a few items with cotton has just been really quite a dream, because it just does everything you ask it to do and sort of stays there. So yeah, I'm definitely think I'm on a bit of a cotton phase now.
Lovely. And what's your least favorite fabric base? What do you try to avoid?
Probably super slippery fabrics. I don't know, like a silk or a satin or something. I'm not a great fan of crepe either, because just the texture of it kind of slightly puts my teeth on edge.
I think there are some nice crepes and there are some horrible, like cheap crepes. Just feel kind of like, oh, get off me kind of thing. But I have recently come across a lovely crepe, and I just thought, oh, actually crepe's not too bad. But
okay, so it's probably what the money you spend on it then that helps.
That's true. So with regards to prints, what do you go for normally? Do you like florals, abstracts, or plains?
I don't think I have a type. I think I just get drawn to whatever I particularly like on the day. Yeah, I guess there's a larger amount of florals than anything else in my wardrobe, but I wouldn't say that I wouldn't, use a different type of base at all.
Yeah. And what do you not like in terms of prints? Is there anything that you wouldn't wear? Like, I don't like paisley.
I'm probably less drawn to paisley. That's probably one of the things I'm less drawn to. Although having said that, one of the pink sphinx, I've got that the wrong way around, no. Pink subscription boxes was like a paisley pinky.
Pink and purple.
That was lovely. So that possibly changed my mind on the whole paisley thing, because that looked beautiful.
Yeah, I guess everybody's got their own. Yeah, I've just never really liked any paisley. Maybe because when I was younger, I used to work as a teenager. I worked in a tie shop and it was all paisley, and I was probably traumatized by the amount of paisley I saw every day.
That's quite specific place to work, tie shop.
It is. I don't know if you remember, it was called Tie Rack.
I do, yeah.
That was back in the day. That was my sort of, like as a student, you have a part-time job, and that was my part-time job. So there you go. So going back to your vlogs, what's the last vlog that you watched in terms of other people? What's the last one that you watched? And
actually.
Oh, was it? Oh, lovely. And what was that about?
Jenny Stitches one that you put out today. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for watching. The audio on that was very bad, so I did put a little note saying I apologize for the audio. And also my the place I was recording is my husband's office, and it's really dark in that room, so now I'm in my sewing room, which is great. So yeah, blogs. Do you read blogs at all?
I'm not such an extensive blog reader, just because I tend to have blogs on in the background whilst I'm sewing, whereas blogs, obviously you'd have to sit and read it. Yeah. I do read blogs that kind of are almost highlighted to me on Instagram and things. I'm like, oh yeah. And I guess sometimes I'll look through like Minerva, and I guess that's essentially a blog in itself about things. I don't often buy from Minerva, but it is quite good to see how people have made up certain items and things like that. Obviously, and Instagram is fantastic for that as well. And some people's, even their like blurb bit on it is essentially the size of a blog.
Yeah, sometimes that's true. And in terms of what's your favorite? Have you got a favorite pattern that you keep going back to? I think I know the answer to this, but
well, I think the thing that I've made the most, sorry, I've got hair in my mouth, is for my son, the Waves of Wild Hot Chocolate pattern.
That's what I was going to say the hot chocolate, but yeah,
I've made that so many times, that sometimes with a hoodie and sometimes without. I've also made the adult version for my husband, which is the hot coffee pattern, but I've never made it for myself, so I probably should remedy that at some point.
Yeah, but I think it's nice once you find a pattern that you like and that fits your child or your husband, why not make it? And you probably could make that without instructions, right? You can just...
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes it's nice just to have like a palette cleanser. And also with kids' clothes, as I said before, like I quite like to make clothes for my kids, but I don't want to spend hours and hours making stuff for them, because they'll either ruin them or grow out of them.
I agree. It's very, very true. Can I ask what's on your cutting table at the moment? Do you have a project on the go at the moment?
Yeah, I'm making the Friday Pattern Company sagebrush top. Another one. Actually, I can see one hanging up.
Oh, yeah. How many have you made of that already?
Oh no, this is just my second version.
Yeah. I've got my second one actually on my cutting table at the moment, so snap. What was the last fabric store you bought from, and what was it? What did you buy, if you don't mind me asking?
I think Felicity Fabrics.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the fabric that I'm making the sagebrush top out of, which is, hang on, this one. This
lovely. So
the wrong way around. Just sort of a ditzy black based fabric. So yeah, and some linen, which I'm yet to decide what to make with. Other than that, I think they probably Pound Fabrics was I think I bought those at a similar time, to be honest with you. I quite like Pound Fabrics because they are so reasonable, and I find as long as you're a little bit picky, their fabrics are really good quality, and they often have the same fabrics as other people have got, but at a much lower price. So they're always a good starting point.
I agree. Do you know about the point system that they do as well, that you can collect points and then you can redeem it? It's like Tesco.
yeah which is always a good thing, you know.
Yeah,
Get a bit of money off at some point.
That's true. Can I ask, have you come across any new tips and tricks sewing wise, or learned anything new recently?
I think the thing that I'm most into is pre-pressing of seams before you sew the garment.
Oh,
So
yeah, go on.
yeah, so particularly like on a sleeve where you know kind of that it's going to hit at the right point, before you sew up like the sleeve together, if you press the hem it under, and then when you come to redo it, your hem is basically kind of essentially being pressed in place, and it's so much easier to sew it because you haven't got to try and fiddle to put, you know, press the hem up, because you've already kind of done it. You've got to redo it, but not to the same degree, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, and so doing it on the flat is better than presumably when it's already in the armhole. Yeah. And
also when I was making this, which is the chalk and notch fringe dress, I watched Andrea from Beyond the Pink Doors tutorial on that, and she said she was doing the slightly different style of, it's not got the button placket, it's the other version B or whatever it is, but essentially the same principle. She said to do the like the button placket, the neck bit, before you put the darts in, because this bit can be quite fiddly, so to do it whilst it's a flat bit of fabric is so much easier than trying to do it after you put the darts in. So that was a good tip that I learned as well.
Oh, that's good. And when you're not sewing, Claire, do you have any other hobbies?
So I don't do them as much at the moment because sewing is definitely my hobby of choice. But knitting, paper crafting.
Oh wow.
Anything that's crafty basically. But I haven't done, well, I've done a little bit of knitting in recent times, but now that I'm fully into sewing, the end result happens so much quicker with sewing than it does with knitting. So yeah, my thing of like wanting everything to be done now sort of thing, or yesterday, is much more easily fulfilled with sewing than it is with knitting.
And I think even like if you're making like a top as well, that's even quicker, right? Like a top you can probably do in a day or half a day. So that's quite nice. Like sometimes when it's just like, oh, I feel like a bit of a pick-me-up, I've got nothing to wear, as we always say. Joey's like, I have nothing to wear, I'll just quickly make a top. And then you have a nice new top quite quickly. Nice. Yes, that's quite nice. And last but not least, what does sewing mean to you, Claire? What you know, what is this hobby of yours? What does it mean to you?
Sewing is just my way of having me time. It's my mindfulness. It's the thing I do to relax. I love the fact that I can just forget about everything else that might be going on in the day, because you've got to concentrate to a certain degree on that, and it just takes me to a place that is just for me. I think after I had sort of children, you can lose yourself a little bit. Well, I certainly found that, and doing something for me is really necessary in terms of managing stress and warding off depression, anxiety, and all those sorts of things. It really does play a really important part. And I know if I've been sort of several days without sewing, I find myself feeling a bit angsty, shall we say.
Yeah, oh, that's lovely. I mean, the same with me. I really enjoy it as well. So yeah, like you, it's just a great personal time, isn't it, where we can be creative, and we can shop, we can have something nice, lovely and nice to wear afterwards. And I think it's a really, really lovely hobby. And like you say, the sewing community is really fabulous, isn't it? Especially like friends like yourself and Adele that we've met along the way. I think it's just really nice to have that, especially during lockdown, with this whole COVID thing where people aren't meeting up as often. It's nice to have sort of like virtual friendships.
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't really ever something I really expected to come out of it, to be honest with you. When I first sort of, found lots of people on Instagram and things like that, I didn't really think about that as an outcome. I know I should have done, because obviously it's a kind of obvious result, but it just hadn't really dawned on me. So yeah, it's lovely to be able to get to know people and you've just always got something to talk about because we all love talking about sewing and fabric. And
can you imagine what it would be like when we finally meet up, us three? We probably won't be able to like. We should have a timer, right? You talk first for 2 minutes, and then I'll talk next. Otherwise, we'll just be
I have to like hold a pair of scissors when it's our time to talk.
Indeed. Oh, well, thank you very much, Claire.
Thank
you for your time. It was lovely chatting to you. To all our viewers, please do check out Claire Stitch Hem Sew on YouTube. She's also on Instagram under the same name. I'll link all her details below. And thank you very much for watching. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.